I didn't fall into this. I walked toward it because it felt good to be seen by someone who wasn't keeping score of bills and the thousand tiny things that make a life. It started with a bright screen at 1 a.m. and a name that wasn't my husband's. I told myself it was harmless because the messages with my coworker looked clean if you skimmed them. Memes, work snark, playlists, that kind of thing. The innocence was a costume I hid behind while I fed the real thing. Attention, novelty, the little jolt in my chest when his typing dots popped up. I started keeping my phone face down, slipping into the bathroom to answer, clearing previews. My husband noticed. He always does. He asked who the guy was, and I said, just a work friend. When he asked to meet him, I joked he'd give him a stink face. What I meant was that my husband would see exactly what I was pretending not to see. He asked me to set boundaries. I said I would. I didn't. We scheduled couples therapy for April. I booked an individual therapist and then used the calendar invites like a hall pass. I told myself I was working on things while the messages piled up after midnight. I told myself I was stagnant at home and at work. Some of that was true. I was bored and scared of saying so. Instead of saying it at the kitchen table, I chased a feeling on my phone. Then came the group night out. I told myself it was safe because it was a group. Later, I was in my car with him under a streetlight, and we kissed. I gave myself exactly 3 seconds to feel the rush, and then I pulled back and said it was a mistake, as if the word could rewind the choice. I wanted to preserve the fiction that I was still the woman who almost crossed a line. I wasn't. I already had. A friend sent my husband a photo from that night with me and him in the background, very close. He called. I confessed the kiss and immediately started softening it. We realized it was wrong. We just talked after. That's my pattern, a sliver of truth cushioned in packaging. He told me to leave. I left with my narration still running, telling myself I was giving him space when really I was escaping the blast I set off. If a wayward like me is reading this while you're still hiding behind innocent messages, you already know what you're doing. You know it by the tilt of your phone when your partner walks in. You know it by the way you retell your day without the parts that would make you look different to yourself. I knew. I just didn't want to stop. Update. This is the ugliest stretch because there's no fog to blame, just me choosing smallness. My husband came by to grab a few things. I moved back in, so he moved out saying he can't bear with me. I met him at the door and said, "It's my house, get out. The deed is in my name. The payments were ours, years of 50-50 before marriage." I used a piece of paper like a weapon because I felt exposed. He had told a colleague what happened, and I cared more about my image at work than the person I'd broken. I did that because I wanted control. I couldn't control his hurt, but I could control a lock. He left. A friend loaned him a place for a couple of weeks. He hired a lawyer. When I got the letter, I called him crying, asking if this was really over. I cried because a consequence came, something that I was not expecting. I hate admitting that because it makes me sound like someone who only feels when it's about her. That's true. 2 days after he moved into an apartment, I let the coworker come by. We walked out together to get food. My husband saw us from the sidewalk. I can play that sequence back like a film, me leaving with the man I burned my house down for while my husband, who built the life with me, was rotting in an apartment. I told my husband he had already left, and what more did he want? And to leave me alone. I defended the other man to the husband I had gutted. I chose the quick, easy validation again, and I did it in front of the person who used to be my safe place. There's a point where every wayward's mask rips off. That was mine. I had been telling myself I was conflicted. The truth is, I was choosing the path with the fastest dopamine and the least grown-up work. I wanted to be adored without being available. I told myself we only kissed. I told myself we were just talking. I used those lines to grade the harm like my husband's body was going to sort the pain by category. It doesn't. If you defend your affair partner to your spouse, you've chosen your team. I chose, and I didn't pick my marriage. I wish I could say that's when I transformed. What actually happened was slower and more humiliating. I sat on a bed and listened to my own voice echo when I said out loud, "I did this, Not the rough patch, not the workload, not the kiss that shouldn't have happened. Me. I pictured my husband calling his dad because I was unpredictable. I replayed the look on his face on that sidewalk until I couldn't hide from it. Update 2. I'm not the narrator of a tragedy that happened to me. I'm the arsonist. So here's what I've done and what I'm willing to keep doing with no promise attached because I don't deserve one. I sent one no-contact message to the coworker and copied HR. I engaged in an inappropriate relationship with you. It harmed my marriage. I am ending all contact immediately. Do not contact me again. Any attempt will be documented and reported. I blocked him on everything I control. I asked to be moved off shared projects and out of overlapping spaces. I told my manager the whole truth, including the kiss, the late messages, my failure to disclose, and the fallout at home. Whatever consequences come, I'll accept them. My husband doesn't need to babysit my job. I wrote a timeline. It's disgusting to see it laid bare. The first non-work DM, the first late night, the first time I hid my screen, the first we that didn't include my husband, the kiss in the car, the photo, the walk to dinner past my husband standing on the sidewalk. Dates, places, lies I told to cover each one. My therapist has it. If my husband wants it, it exists for him. If he doesn't, I still needed to force the sequence into daylight because my talent for spin lives in edits and omissions. I apologized in writing for turning the house into a fight and told my lawyer to pursue a fair split based on contributions and equity, not title leverage. He has his own lawyer now. I'll communicate only through counsel, meet deadlines, and won't play discovery or stalling games. I offered to cover his short-term housing while the legal piece moves, regardless of whether we reconcile. Money is not going to be a leash. If he wants to sell, I'll sign and move quickly. If he wants to buy me out or push me to buy him out, I'll cooperate without dragging my heels. I forfeited any right to play tug-of-war. I told my husband I will respect whatever he chooses. If he wants divorce, I won't turn the process into one last place to win. If he wants no contact except through lawyers, I'll stop sending midnight "Are you okay?" texts that are more about soothing me than helping him. If he has questions, I'll answer once, directly without the padding I use to make myself sound better. If he doesn't, I won't chase. He has not replied yet. I know that walking out to dinner with him in front of my husband doesn't disappear because I wrote 3 long posts. I know the smirk I didn't shut down will visit him at night. I know if he files, the date will sit next to our wedding date in my head like a match set that explains me better than any essay. I can't undo those. I can stop adding new ones. If a wayward woman is reading this at the stage where the messages still look pretty, this is your mirror. You're already bargaining with yourself. You can end it now. Tell your husband, tell your boss, burn the channel down, sit in the humiliation, and do the boring repair work. Or you can keep going and end up where I stood, on a sidewalk watching the person who loved me look like he'd never seen me before, while another man smiled behind me. I don't know if I'll ever be welcome back in the life I torched. I do know I'm done telling the story like I almost made a mistake. I made many. I'm going to spend the time I've got left becoming someone safe, even if I end up safe for a future I don't recognize. It isn't justice, it's the bill. And I'll keep paying it whether anyone is watching or not, because the only thing worse than what I did